The slap cracked through the depot like a gunshot. The human security officer staggered back, blinking in disbelief as his cheek bloomed red. A dozen onlookers, humans and aliens alike, froze in place, unsure whether to run or watch the next moment unfold. Elara Kane stood with her feet planted, fists clenched, heart hammering in her chest. The cold fury in her eyes turned the towering man before her into something small. "You lay a hand on a veteran service dog again," she said, voice low and edged like a blade, "and I'll bury you myself." The dog, a cybernetically augmented warhound, growled. The Keshri veteran, its owner, remained still, his 3 reptilian eyes narrowing as he pulled his cloak tighter around his battle-worn body. He hadn't spoken since the incident began. He didn't need to. His silence was centuries of discipline wrapped in scar tissue. "That thing's not allowed here," the officer hissed, still holding his cheek. Elara's lip curled. "That thing served in the Keshri front. Fought your war. Bled for your cause. It's got more right to be here than you." The depot stank of oil, overheated electronics, and desperation. Refugees and off-duty personnel lined the walls, trading ration tokens for black market goods. But now, every eye was on Elara. The officer sneered. "Maybe that mutt means something to them." He gestured at the veteran with a dismissive flick of his hand. "But this is human territory." Elara had heard enough. She grabbed him by the collar and slammed him into the nearest crate. The impact rattled the supply shelves, toppling loose components and knocking a display terminal askew. The murmurs grew louder. This was no longer a quiet dispute. "You ever served?" she asked, her breath hot against his face. The officer squirmed but didn't answer. "Didn't think so." Elara shoved him away. "Next time you want to throw your weight around, pick someone who didn't bleed for this planet." The man glared, but he didn't retaliate. Not with the whole depot watching. Instead, he spat at the ground near the dog's paws, turned on his heel, and stalked out. Silence settled, thick and tense. Then, a slow clap echoed through the room. A grizzled engineer leaned against the crate, smirking. "Damn, Kane! That's one way to clock out." Elara stiffened. The reality hit her like a railgun round. She turned, and sure enough, her supervisor stood at the depot entrance, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "Captain Kane," the older woman said evenly. "My office." "Now." Elara exhaled through her nose. She knelt beside the warhound, running a gloved hand over its sleek, obsidian-black cybernetic plating. "Take care of him," she told the Keshri veteran, who met her gaze with solemn understanding. Then, without another word, she straightened her jacket and walked toward her fate. "Effective immediately, you are relieved of duty." The words landed like hammer blows. Elara sat rigid across from her supervisor's desk, jaw locked, fists white-knuckled on her lap. The room was barebones, metal walls, a flickering hollow panel, an old earth flag pinned up behind the desk, edges frayed from age. "You can't be serious," Elara said finally. The supervisor sighed, rubbing her temples. "You assaulted a security officer. You know what that means." Elara's heart pounded. "He was harassing a veteran. That should mean something." "It does. But that's not how things work here." The older woman's gaze softened, but not enough to undo the damage. "This war's cost us too much, Kane. We can't afford more internal conflicts." Elara swallowed the heat rising in her throat. "So what now? You walk out of here. You take the loss. And you don't make this worse." It would have been easier if her supervisor was angry, if she had yelled, if she had given Elara something to fight against. But this? This was worse. This was disappointment. Elara stood. "Fine. Elara." She didn't wait for the rest. The door hissed open, then shut behind her. She was outside the depot now, the cold night air slicing through her jacket. The city stretched out before her, a tangled mess of neon lights and ruined steel, old Earth architecture swallowed by alien tech. Skyships drifted between towering spires, their underbellies glowing against the low-hanging smog. Jobless. The weight of it pressed against her chest. All those years. All that service. And now? Now she was just another ex-soldier with nothing to her name. The warhound barked. Ilara turned. The HFY veteran stood nearby, his battle-scarred hand resting on the dog's head. You fought for what was right, he said, his voice deep and rumbling. Ilara huffed out a bitter laugh. Didn't change a damn thing. The veteran regarded her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached into his cloak and pulled something free, a data chip. Ilara frowned. What's that? A message, the HFY said. 1 hour ago, a ship entered orbit. Not Dominion. Not human. Something else. A prickle ran down her spine. And this has to do with me because... The veteran gave her a knowing look. Because they asked for you by name. Ilara's blood ran cold. Far above, in the darkness of space, a warship loomed. Its hull was matte black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. No markings, no insignia. Inside, Admiral Jaxa Thorne stood at the viewing deck, hands clasped behind his back, watching Earth's scarred surface. She's been dismissed from duty, his aide reported. Thorne smirked. Perfect. A pause. You're sure she'll accept? She will. Thorne turned away from the viewport, eyes sharp with purpose. Because she doesn't have a choice. The aide hesitated. And if she refuses? Thorne's smirk widened. She won't. He turned, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. Because humanity is running out of heroes. And I refuse to let this war end without one. The warhound paced at her side, its cybernetic legs silent against the damp pavement. Ilara Kane gripped the data chip in her palm, feeling the weight of something much larger than herself pressing against her ribs. They asked for you by name. The HFY veteran had said nothing more. Just handed her the chip and disappeared into the shadows. She stood now at a rusted-out terminal, a relic from when Earth had still been a world of skyscrapers instead of craters. The city's power grid flickered, struggling to keep up with the patchwork of human and alien infrastructure. Ilara slid the chip into the reader. The screen burst to life. A single message played. Doc 17. 1 hour. You're not done yet. No sender. No insignia. But the voice, gravel, authority, the kind of tone that meant orders weren't suggestions. She knew that voice. Admiral Jaxa Thorne. A legend among soldiers. A ghost among enemies. And now, apparently, the one calling her back into the fire. Ilara exhaled, slow and steady. She had two options: walk away and try to build a life out of scraps, or step onto that dock and find out why the galaxy suddenly cared about an ex-soldier who just lost her job defending a warhound. She reached down, scratched behind the dog's augmented ear. What do you think? The warhound huffed. A sound halfway between approval and amusement. Ilara smirked. Yeah. Thought so. She started walking. Dock 17 loomed like a beast in the dark, its bulkheads towering above the scrapyard of abandoned ships. Cargo cranes stood frozen mid-motion, their rusted arms reaching toward the sky like the bones of dead giants. Ilara stepped onto the loading ramp. No one stopped her. No guards. No checkpoint. Just a single, blinking light leading her forward. A voice cut through the silence. About time. Ilara turned. Admiral Jaxa Thorne stood at the base of a waiting shuttle, hands clasped behind his back. He was taller than she remembered, lean muscle wrapped in the crisp, midnight blue uniform of the Coalition Navy. His dark hair had begun to gray at the temples, but his eyes, cold, calculating, hadn't aged a day. You always this dramatic? She asked. Thorne smirked. Only when I know it works. She folded her arms. I'm not military anymore. That's what makes you useful. Ilara narrowed her eyes. Cut to it, Admiral. He nodded. We're leaving in 5 minutes. You're coming with us. She scoffed. Try again. Thorne took a slow step forward, his boots clicking against the metal floor. You know what's up there right now? He pointed to the sky. An Arkan Dominion war fleet. 30 ships. Full assault capability. They're not here to negotiate. Elara tensed. They're making a move on Earth. They're making a move on something beneath Earth, Thorn corrected. We intercepted their transmissions. Whatever they're after, it's buried deep in the crust. Classified records call it Project Revenant. Ever heard of it? Elara's pulse quickened. She had. Project Revenant had been a ghost story whispered through the ranks during her years in the service. A failsafe, a last resort, something humanity had hidden long before the war even started. No one knew what it actually was. Elara met Thorn's gaze. And you think I can help because… You're the best damn strategist I've seen, he said simply. And I need someone who doesn't answer to bureaucracy. Elara let out a dry laugh. You mean I'm expendable? Thorn shrugged. I mean you have nothing left to lose. The words hit harder than she expected. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, finally, who else is on this team? A second voice answered from the shadows. You already met one of us. The Keshri veteran stepped into the light. His war cloak shifted, revealing the hilt of a plasma blade at his hip. Elara arched a brow. You, huh? The Keshri gave a slight nod. Your actions today showed honor. I will fight alongside honor. The warhound trotted forward, tail wagging slightly. Thorn watched the exchange with mild amusement. There's also a demolitions expert and an infiltration specialist. But we don't have time for introductions. Elara rolled her shoulders. The weight of choice pressed against her ribs. She could walk away. She should walk away. But something about the way Thorn looked at her, like he already knew her answer, made her scowl. Damn you, she muttered. Thorn grinned. I'll take that as a yes. The shuttle's thrusters roared as it lifted off, punching through Earth's gravity well. The transition from atmosphere to void was seamless, the hum of stabilizers smoothing out the violent ascent. Elara sat strapped into a harness across from the rest of the strike team. To her right, the Keshri veteran sat in silent meditation. To her left, a woman with sharp eyes and a scarred lip was assembling a rail pistol with methodical precision. Name's Nix, she said without looking up. Demolitions and breaching. Elara nodded. Kane. Ex-military. Professional pain in the ass. Nix smirked. You'll fit right in. Thorn's voice crackled through the cabin. Brace yourselves. We're coming up on the drop zone. Elara peered out the viewport. The Dominion fleet hung in orbit like a storm waiting to break. Ships the size of cities drifted in calculated formations, their obsidian hulls reflecting no light, no warmth, just the cold promise of destruction. She exhaled. Hell of a homecoming. Thorn's voice was steady. Mission parameters are simple. We breach the dig site before the Dominion does. Find out what Project Revenant is. Secure it. And if it's a weapon? Nix asked. Thorn's reply was quiet. Then we make sure we control it. The shuttle lurched as the drop bay doors opened. Red lights flared, signaling deployment. Outside, the surface of Earth stretched below, war-scarred, cratered, but still standing. Thorn's final command came through the comms. Go. Elara took a breath. And jumped. The freefall was silent. Elara's body knifed through the upper atmosphere, her thrusters cold and idle to avoid detection. Below, the war-ravaged Earth stretched in shades of burnt umber and twisted steel. Fires smoldered across old battlefields, remnants of conflicts fought long before today. In her visor, a heads-up display painted the terrain in tactical overlays. The dig site sat in the husk of a ruined city, a cratered scar where history had been buried beneath layers of war and time. Her comm crackled. Kane, status? Elara adjusted her descent, angling toward the drop zone. Still breathing, Admiral. That count? For now. See you on the ground. She cut her thrusters, letting gravity do the work. At the last second, she reignited the pack, flaring to a hard but controlled landing amid the ruins. Dust plumed around her boots. The strike team landed in sequence, Nyx touching down with the smooth precision of an assassin, the Keshri veteran landing in a crouch, his warhound beside him. Elara scanned the perimeter. Where's the rest of the Dominion force? Nyx checked her scanner. A few clicks south. They're clearing debris around the dig site. Elara's jaw tightened. Which means they're about to break through. The Keshri veteran studied the landscape. Then we must move quickly. Thorn's voice cut in through their earpieces. Your priority is to get inside first. If the Dominion gets its hands on Revenant before we do, Earth won't survive what comes next. Elara motioned forward. Then let's get to work. They advanced through the ruins in a staggered formation, moving like shadows against the wreckage of an older war. The remains of skyscrapers jutted toward the sky, hollowed-out ribs of a long-dead giant. Old mechs lay in pieces, their rusted limbs tangled with vines and wreckage. The entrance to the dig site loomed ahead, a massive subterranean vault, its doors pried open by Dominion excavators. Automated turrets lined the entrance, lifeless for now, but their design was unmistakable. This place wasn't built by the Dominion, Elara murmured. Nyx ran a gloved hand over the inactive turrets. No. It was built against them. A low growl rumbled beside her. The warhound's ears flicked back, muscles tensed. Then she heard it. A faint hum. Elara's instincts screamed. Move! They scattered an instant before energy rounds lit up the ruins. Dominion soldiers dropped from the upper scaffolds, weapons trained and merciless. Shadows moved between the wreckage, more incoming. Elara rolled behind a fallen pillar, snapping her rifle to her shoulder. Nyx status? Nyx's voice came back clipped. Pissed off, but alive. The Keshri veteran had already engaged, his plasma blade carving through the first wave of enemies. The warhound lunged, its reinforced jaws crushing a soldier's arm with a sickening crunch. Elara lined up a shot and fired. A Dominion soldier's head snapped back, armor sparking as he crumpled. Another dropped, then another. But they kept coming. A voice echoed through the battlefield, thick with command. Humans always make things difficult. Elara's blood chilled. General Threxian Voss. She ducked behind cover, reloading. The last time humanity faced him, entire colonies had burned. He strode onto the battlefield, flanked by elite guards in obsidian armor. His eyes glowed with the eerie luminescence of Dominion augments, his presence a force of nature. He wasn't just a commander, he was an executioner. Elara wiped sweat from her brow. Well, that's a problem. Nyx pulled a charge from her belt. I say we blow a hole in his face and call it a day. Tempting, Elara muttered. But we need to get inside. The Keshri veteran landed beside them, breathing hard. We will not last long in open battle. Elara nodded. Then we do this smart. Nyx, set charges at the excavation scaffolds. We bring the ceiling down, force them back. Veteran, you cover her. Nyx grinned. Now we're talking. As Nyx sprinted toward the support beams, Elara turned to the Keshri veteran. That door, think you can override it? The Keshri tilted his head. Given time. We don't have time. The warhound barked sharply. Then Elara felt it, a shift in the air, an instinct honed by years of battle. Something was coming. Move! She shouted. A plasma bolt slammed into the ground where she had stood a moment ago. The explosion sent her sprawling, her ears ringing. Dust clouded her vision. She coughed, pushing herself up. Threxian Voss stood over her. You don't belong here, human, he said, voice like gravel. Elara clenched her jaw. And yet here I am. Voss tilted his head, amused. You fight like a species that doesn't understand extinction. Elara spat blood. I fight like a species that refuses to die. Voss' expression darkened. Then you will be the first to fall. He raised his weapon. Then the world exploded. The scaffolds came crashing down as Nyx's charges detonated. Dust and debris swallowed the battlefield, cutting off the Dominion's reinforcements. Elara didn't waste a second. She slammed her elbow into Voss' gut, rolled to her feet, and sprinted toward the vault doors. The Keshri veteran was already inside, his hands moving over ancient controls. "Tell me you've got it!" Elara shouted. The doors groaned, ancient mechanisms grinding to life. "Almost!" he called. Voss was already recovering, his soldiers regrouping. Elara turned, rifle raised. She knew she wouldn't be fast enough. Then the warhound lunged. It slammed into Voss with a snarl, fangs sinking into armored flesh. The Dominion general staggered, roaring in pain. Elara took the chance. She grabbed Nyx by the collar and hauled her through the threshold. The doors shuttered. Locked. Silence. They were inside. Elara exhaled, heart hammering. The warhound limped forward, its plating scorched but its tail still wagging. "Good boy," she murmured. Nyx dusted herself off. "I hope whatever's in here was worth that stunt." Elara turned, eyes tracing the chamber. The vault stretched into darkness. Strange symbols lined the walls, glowing faintly with energy untouched for centuries. At the far end, something massive loomed, metallic, curved, humming with dormant power. Project Revenant. And from the way the air felt, thick with something ancient and waiting, it wasn't just a weapon. It was something else entirely. Nyx exhaled. "So, now what?" Elara's grip tightened on her rifle. "No," she said, staring at the machine that could change everything. "We find out why the Dominion is afraid of it." And for the first time since she lost her job that morning, she felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Elara's boots echoed as she stepped deeper into the vault. The air was thick with dust and something older, something that felt alive. The walls pulsed with a faint luminescence, alien symbols flickering as if aware of their presence. She could feel it, humming just beneath her skin. Nyx moved to her side, scanning the chamber. "I don't like this," she muttered. "This is the part in old war stories where the idiot humans wake something up and regret it." The Keshri veteran placed a clawed hand against one of the glowing symbols. "This was not built by humans. And not by the Dominion." Elara's eyes traced the massive construct looming at the far end. Its sleek, metallic curve shimmered under the dim vault lighting, smooth as if untouched by time. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a weapon. It was something else. The warhound padded forward, ears pinned back, posture rigid. Elara gripped her rifle. "Thorn, we're in." "But this isn't what we expected." His voice crackled through the calm. "Define not what we expected." Elara hesitated. "It's alive." A beat of silence. Then, "Explain." Before she could answer, the Keshri veteran let out a sharp hiss. "Something is activating." The floor beneath them trembled. A deep, resonant thrum vibrated through the chamber, growing in intensity. The glowing symbols brightened, forming intricate patterns that coiled across the walls like circuitry coming online. A pulse of energy rolled through the room, static crackling against Elara's armor. The warhound barked. And then, a voice, smooth, layered, and impossibly vast, filled the chamber. "Designations detected, human. Keshri. Hybrid Canid. Query, purpose of intrusion." Nyx swore. "That's new." Elara forced herself to stay steady. "We're here to secure the facility." "Who are you?" A pause. Then, the construct moved. Panels slid apart with mechanical grace, revealing a towering structure within. Energy flowed through its veins like molten gold, illuminating its humanoid shape. Tall, impossibly advanced, its form both mechanical and organic in perfect balance. The machine's head lifted. Eyes, if they could even be called that, glowed with unfathomable intelligence. "I am Revenant." Elara swallowed. Project Revenant wasn't a weapon. It was a being. Revenant's history. Thorn's voice cut in. "Kane. Status." Elara barely heard him. "You're Revenant?" The machine regarded her. Its voice shifted, as if calculating the best way to respond. "Revenant is a designation. I am the last of the Eidolon. The first and final protector of this world." The Keshri veteran inhaled sharply. "Eidolon," he murmured. "The lost precursors." Nyx looked between them. I'm sorry, what? Alara's mind raced. Eidolon. The name had appeared in fragments across war records, dismissed as myth. An ancient civilization, one that predated both humanity and the Dominion. You were here before us, Alara said, realization dawning. Correct. Her throat tightened. And you're still here. Which means you were meant to wake up for a reason. Revenant's glowing eyes burned brighter. Correct. A cold shiver ran down her spine. The Dominion is digging for something. What are they trying to find? Revenant tilted its head, as if analyzing the question. Then, in a voice edged with something that almost sounded like warning. They seek the Gravekeeper. Nick stiffened. That sounds bad. Revenant did not blink. If the Dominion succeeds, Earth falls. All falls. The Keshri veteran tensed. Then we must stop them. The Dominion arrives. Before Alara could speak, an impact shook the vault. The doors behind them exploded, metal shrieking as Dominion soldiers poured in, weapons raised. Threxian Voss stepped through the breach, armor gleaming, his expression unreadable. Alara yanked Nyx behind cover. Time's up. Voss surveyed the chamber, gaze locking onto Revenant. His lips curled in something resembling a smile. So this is what humanity has been hiding. Revenant's eyes glowed like burning suns. You are unwelcome here. Voss laughed. And yet here I stand. He turned to his troops. Secure the construct. Blaster fire erupted. Alara moved on instinct, rolling behind a fallen column. The warhound lunged, teeth bared, tearing into the nearest Dominion soldier. Nyx pulled a detonator from her belt. I've got explosives. We blow the entrance by time. Alara shook her head. No. We need Revenant out of here, not buried inside. The Keshri veteran unsheathed his plasma blade. Then we carve a path. Alara's rifle hummed as she took aim. Let's go. The battle for Revenant. The room became chaos. Dominion forces advanced in formation, weapons tearing through cover as Alara and her team returned fire. The Keshri veteran fought like a force of nature, his blade cutting through soldiers with lethal efficiency. The warhound ripped through the enemy lines, cybernetic limbs moving with terrifying precision. Voss strode forward unfazed. You can't win this, Kane. Alara gritted her teeth. I've heard that before. Revenant's body began to shift, energy crackling along its limbs. Assistance, granted. A wave of force erupted from the construct, sending Dominion soldiers flying. Alara didn't hesitate. Revenant, we need an exit. The machine turned toward the far wall. Its arm extended, fingers shifting, reshaping, and then a pulse of energy blasted through the barrier. A tunnel. Nyx exhaled. Not bad. Alara motioned. Go! Now! The Keshri veteran and the warhound moved first, covering their flank. Nyx followed, detonator ready. Alara turned back one last time. Voss locked eyes with her. This isn't over, he said. Alara smirked. I was hoping you'd say that. Then she ran. Into the unknown. They emerged into an underground passage, dust settling around them. Revenant followed, its movements eerily smooth, its presence immense. Thorn's voice crackled in her ear. Kane! What the hell happened down there? Alara wiped sweat from her brow. Short version? The Dominion knows about Revenant. And they were looking for something worse. Silence. Then. Explain. Alara glanced at Revenant. Ever heard the name Gravekeeper? Thorn's breathing stalled. Then, a single, cold reply. We have a problem. Alara exhaled, the weight of something vast settling over her. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning.